Hard on the Track. Part 1. Chapter 1, Friendship on the Starting Line. The wind on the grandstand was sharp and smelled of gasoline. In the distance, the deep roar of engines echoed, broken only by brief silences when the racers disappeared behind the bend. But my eyes weren't on the track. They were on him. Adam. He wore his red racing suit, the one that always looked like it had been tailored just for him. His hair was tucked under his helmet, but I could picture every single strand. I'd known him since we were just kids, running around the parking lot and racing toy cars from the corner store. He dreamed of being the fastest driver in the world, and I dreamed of being there beside him. I never told him. Not once. Maybe because I was afraid I'd lose the one thing I could count on. Him. Lukas, he shouted to me from across the pit. "You got the telemetry data?" I held up the tablet and showed it to him. "You're losing speed in turn 4. You're holding too far to the right." Yeah, he waved me off without looking. I knew he'd heard me. Adam always heard everything, he just chose what he thought mattered. I was his spotter, his manager, his fixer of crises. And sometimes even his personal therapist, though he'd never asked for it. When he had a bad day, I paid the price. When he had a good day, it was his victory alone. It had been like that for years. And still, I kept telling myself that one day it would change. That he'd notice how much I did for him, and realize. Me. The engine of his car thundered so loud my headset rattled. I switched over to the internal comms and heard his voice. "Let's do this, Lou." "Go get him," I said, though he never heard how much those words meant to me. When he shot out onto the track, I followed every lap, every move. The people around me cheered, shouting his name. I stood silent, holding my joy and my worry in equal measure. Because no matter what happened, Adam was my race, and I was terrified that one day I'd lose him. Chapter 2, First Cracks in the Asphalt. The sun was high by the time Adam's car rolled back into the pit. He jumped out, helmet under his arm, a wide grin cutting across his face. "Did you see that pass on lap 12? Textbook," he said, walking straight past me toward a group of sponsors who'd been waiting in the shade. I stood there, holding the updated race data, feeling the heat of the track rising through my shoes. He hadn't even looked at me. It wasn't new, not really. Lately, Adam had been collecting people the way some drivers collected trophies. Mechanics, reporters, pretty fans with cameras ready. And me? I'd become part of the background noise. I told myself it was fine. He was under pressure. He needed to build his brand. That's what friends do, right? They understand. Still, when I finally caught his attention to go over the lap times, he just waved his hand. "Later, Lou. I've got a thing with the team tonight, a thing. Without me." I tried to laugh it off, even made a joke to the head mechanic about Adam finally learning how to socialize. But inside, something in my chest tightened. The races kept coming, week after week. The more Adam won, the less he seemed to need me. Except when something went wrong. Then I was the first person he called barking instructions. One Thursday evening, during a quiet practice session, I caught him standing by the track with someone I didn't recognize. A tall man with sun-bleached hair and a jacket slung over one shoulder. They were laughing at Adam's easy, unguarded laugh, the one I hadn't heard directed at me in months. When Adam noticed me watching, he raised a hand in a half-hearted wave. "Lou, this is David. He races for the Eclipse team." David's handshake was firm, his eyes bright in a way that felt disarming. "I've seen you out there, Lukas. You're good at what you do." "Damn good." I muttered something polite, though the compliment landed somewhere between my ribs and my pride. Then David said it, casual as if he were asking for the time. "If you ever get tired of babysitting this guy, I could use someone like you in my corner." Adam laughed like it was a joke. I didn't. I didn't know it yet, but that was the first pebble in the avalanche. Chapter 3: The Breaking Point. The weekend of the Silverstone Cup was supposed to be Adam's big moment. The press was calling him favorite. The weather was perfect, and the stands were so full. You could feel the hum of the crowd in your chest. I'd been up since dawn, running between the garage and the paddock, double-checking every detail. Tire pressure, fuel mix, the cum system. Everything was dialed in. When Adam arrived, he didn't even stop by our pit. He went straight to a group of journalists, flashing that perfect smile, telling them how he had personally fine-tuned the car this week. I swallowed the sting. That wasn't true, but it wasn't the first time I'd been erased from the story. The race began, and for the first half, Adam was flawless. Then came lap 22. A sudden drop in his speed. My eyes flew to the telemetry. Adam, you're pushing too hard in turn 5, ease up. You're losing grip. I said into the comm. His reply was sharp. Stop telling me how to drive, Lou. I've got this. I tried again, but he cut the channel. Just like that shut me out. 2 laps later, he spun out. Not a full crash, but enough to cost him the lead. When he rolled into the pit, he ripped off his helmet and stormed toward me. This is on you. He shouted loud enough for the crew and the cameras to hear. You're supposed to keep me ahead, not distract me with useless calls. The heat in my chest flared into something I couldn't swallow down. Distract you? I was keeping you from throwing the race away. Yeah? Well, maybe I should have listened to someone else. It was like the world narrowed to a pinpoint. Years of loyalty, of quiet hope, of being there for him through every win and loss, all of it twisted into that one moment. I didn't even realize David was standing nearby until he stepped forward, his voice steady but firm. That's enough, Adam. Adam glared, but I didn't look at him again. I took off my headset and set it on the pit wall. My hands were trembling not from fear, but from the sudden, cold clarity. That's when David, who had been standing just a few feet away from me, stepped forward, voice calm, eyes on me. You know, Lukas, my team could use a spotter like you. Adam let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Go ahead. I don't care. You're useless to me anyway. The words hit harder than I expected. Years of loyalty, all dismissed in one breath. I turned to David, my jaw tight. Is the offer real? Completely, he said without hesitation. I didn't look back at Adam and said, then I'm in. Walking away felt like stepping off the track and into an entirely different race. Chapter 4: A New Pit Wall. Leaving Adam's pit felt like walking through a storm, the noise of engines, the flash of cameras, the curious stares from the crew. I half expected him to call me back. But he didn't. David matched my pace as we crossed to the Eclipse garage. His team colors, black and silver, gleamed under the sun, a sharp contrast to Adam's bright red. It felt like I just stepped into another world. We've got a spare headset and your own monitor, David said, motioning me toward a workstation. You can set up however you like. I don't care if you rearrange the whole thing if it makes you faster, it's worth it. It was strange being given that kind of freedom. Adam never let me touch his systems without double-checking everything himself. The rest of David's crew nodded at me in greeting. No suspicious glances, no questions about why I'd switched sides mid-event. Just acceptance. When the next practice began, I slipped into work mode, scanning the telemetry, feeding David short, precise updates over comms. His driving style was different, looser, more instinctive, but he listened. Really listened. Good call on turn 8, he said after the first lap. Picked up 3/10 because of you. The praise caught me off guard. I cleared my throat, pretending it didn't matter, but inside I felt something unclench. After the session, David pulled off his helmet and grinned at me, sweat dripping down his temples. You've got an eye for this, Lukas. I can tell you've been carrying more than your share on the other side. I shrugged, looking away. Let's just say I'm used to not being seen. His smile faded into something softer. Well, you're seen now. For a second, the world narrowed to that look steady, warm, and entirely without the sharp edges I'd grown used to. I didn't know if this was just a professional respect or the start of something more, but I knew one thing. For the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Chapter 5 Midnight in the Garage. The track was silent, not the quiet of morning, but that heavy electric stillness that comes after a storm. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, throwing pale stripes across the floor. The rest of the crew had gone hours ago, their laughter and footsteps fading until it was just the two of us. David was leaning over the hood of the car, one gloved hand braced against the frame, the other slowly turning a wrench. I sat at the workstation, the telemetry screen glowing in the dim light. "This gear ratio's off," he murmured without looking at me. His voice was lower at night, quieter. "Feels fine at first, but you can't carry enough speed out of turn 3. I tapped the keys, my eyes flicking over the data. "You're topping out too soon. We changed the final drive ratio. You'll keep your acceleration, but still have speed on the straights." He glanced over his shoulder. "You just know that? No calculator, no notes?" I met his eyes, a small smirk tugging at my mouth. "Guess I've done this a few times." The corner of his mouth curved. "You're dangerous, Lukas." Dangerous. The word stuck in my head, humming there as we moved around the car. Every brush of our shoulders felt like a spark in the dim light. We worked without rushing. Tools passed from hand to hand. The metallic scent of oil mixed with something warmer, the faint trace of his cologne. It clung to the back of my throat, distracting me in a way I wasn't used to. At one point, I slid into the driver's seat to check the readings. David stepped in close, leaning on the doorframe. His arm rested casually above me, his body angled just enough that I could feel the heat radiating off him. "Look at me a second," he said, and I did. Slowly. His eyes caught the light, flecks of gold glinting in the brown. When I said I see you, I meant all of you. On and off the track. I swallowed, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "Why?" "Because you've been running flat out for someone who never once looked back. You're worth more than being someone's shadow." The words landed somewhere deep, somewhere I'd kept locked. For a moment, neither of us moved. The air between us felt charged like the space before a starting gun. His gaze lingered a second too long, and I wasn't sure if I wanted him to step back. Or closer. When I finally looked away, my pulse was in my ears. I muttered something about finishing the calibration, just to break the hold he had on me. We packed up near midnight. Outside, the air was cooler, the lot quiet. We didn't rush to our cars. We didn't need to. And as we walked side by side into the dark, I realized the most dangerous thing wasn't how close David was standing to me tonight. It was how much closer I wanted him to be. Chapter 6, The First Showdown. Race day had a different kind of weight this time. The air over the paddock felt tighter, charged. 2 teams. 2 drivers. And a history I could still feel burning at the back of my neck. Adam's red car was parked just a few garages down, his crew swarming like ants. I didn't need to hear what he was saying, I knew the tone. Confident. Careless. The same tone he used when he thought nothing could touch him. David's car, all black and silver, gleamed under the sun. I crouched beside it, headset around my neck, triple-checking the comms system. My hands were steady, but my chest. Not so much. David knelt beside me, one hand resting on the door of the car. "You ready for this?" "Shouldn't I be asking you that?" I said, trying to mask the edge in my voice. He grinned, that slow, dangerous kind of grin that said he'd been ready for this moment long before it arrived. "I've been waiting for this race since the day I saw you walk away from him." That shouldn't have made my pulse jump. But it did. The pre-race announcements blared through the speakers. The crowd's noise rose like a tide, spilling over everything else. I slipped the headset on, my voice calm as I fed David the opening strategy. Stay tight on turn 3. Don't overtake before the back straight. He'll push early, let him burn his tires. Copy that, Lou. His voice in my ear was steady, warm. The lights went out, and the race exploded into motion. Adam shot ahead, just like I knew he would. David stayed right where I told him to, close enough to threaten, far enough to bait him. Gap's closing, I said. 3/10, wait for it. Every lap was a tug of war. Adam's aggressive style versus David's patience. My heartbeat synced with the rhythm of the track, the rush into the corners, the blast down the straights. By lap 21, Adam's rear tires were starting to slide. Now, I said, my voice sharper. David took the inside on turn 5. For a heartbeat, they were side by side, inches apart, the sound of the engines vibrating in my bones. Adam tried to shut the door, but David was already through. Beautiful, I breathed into the combs before I could stop myself. David's laugh crackled back in my ear. Thought you'd like that. The final laps blurred. David pulling away, Adam fighting to catch up, the crowd losing its mind. When the checkered flag waved, David crossed the line first. I didn't cheer. I just stood there, the noise of the victory wrapping around me, feeling something heavier and hotter than pride. When David climbed out of the car, helmet under his arm, his eyes found mine instantly. He didn't say anything in front of the cameras. He didn't have to. Because in that moment, I knew the race wasn't the only thing he'd just won. Chapter 7 after the flag. Adam didn't come near us after the race. I saw him from across the paddock, helmet still on, jaw tight, eyes locked on me. It wasn't just anger. It was something sharper, colder. David noticed. Ignore him, he murmured. But I knew Adam too well. He didn't let things go. The paddock was chaos. Reporters crowding for quotes, cameras flashing, crew members shouting over each other in celebration. David let them pull him toward the podium, smiling for the photographers, answering questions with that calm confidence that made him so damn hard to look away from. I hung back by the garage, headset still around my neck, my pulse finally starting to come down from the race. Watching him up there, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, pride without bitterness. When it was over, when the champagne had been sprayed and the media had drifted toward their next target, David slipped away from the crowd and found me exactly where I'd been waiting. You disappeared, he said, stepping close enough that the noise of the paddock dulled. Didn't want to steal the spotlight, I replied, half smiling. His eyes narrowed slightly, like he didn't buy that for a second. You weren't stealing it. You're the reason I was on it. The words hit harder than I expected. Adam had never said anything like that, not once in all our years together. Come on, David said, nodding toward the back of the garage. Before someone finds us. We ended up sitting on the edge of the open pit wall, the night air cool against my skin. The track lights were still on, casting long shadows across the asphalt. From here, the place felt empty. Hours. He handed me a bottle of water, then sat close enough that our knees brushed. You were perfect out there, he said. Every call, every read. You didn't just help me when you outplayed him. I tried to laugh it off, but the heat in his voice made it impossible. We sat there for a long moment, the quiet stretching between us, comfortable and charged all at once. David leaned back on his hands, head tilted toward me. You know, I didn't just make you that offer because you're good at your job. My heart picked up speed. No? His gaze held mine steady and unflinching. I made it because I wanted you. All of you. On my team. And maybe not just there. I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. David. He didn't move closer, but his voice softened into something that made my chest ache. You don't have to say anything now. Just don't pretend you don't feel it too. The space between us felt impossibly small. One wrong or right move and everything would change. I didn't cross it. Neither did he. But when we finally stood to leave, his hand brushed mine in the dark, slow and deliberate. And I didn't pull away until the garage door slid shut behind us. Chapter 8 off the track. 2 nights later, I was walking back from a late run to the corner shop. The street by my apartment was quiet, just the dull glow of a streetlight and the distant hum of traffic. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. Before I could turn, someone shoved me hard against the wall. The breath slammed out of my lungs. "Boss says you should have kept your mouth shut," one of them hissed. Adam. Of course. The first punch caught me in the ribs. The second split my lip. I tried to fight back, but there were too many of them, and I'd never been built for brawls. They weren't here to kill me, just to break me. To make sure I wouldn't be in David's ear on race day again. A hand fisted in my jacket, pulling me forward and then suddenly letting go. There was a shout, the sound of someone hitting the ground. Another grunt. Through the blur in my vision, I saw David. He moved fast, all controlled fury, and in seconds the street was empty except for the two of us. Lukas, he caught me as my knees buckled. "I'm fine," I tried to say, but the words came out rough. "You're not fine," he snapped, his voice low but shaking. "Come on." He half carried me to his car, every step steady and certain. The drive was quiet except for the sound of my breathing, shallow and uneven. When we reached his place, a sleek, modern apartment overlooking the city, he didn't ask if I wanted to stay. He just got me inside, sat me on the couch, and disappeared into the kitchen. A moment later, he was back with a first aid kit and a glass of water. "Lift your shirt," he said, kneeling in front of me. I hesitated, but his eyes were all business until he saw the bruise blooming across my ribs. His jaw tightened. "They wanted to take you out of the game," he said quietly. "But they forgot something." "What's that?" He met my gaze, steady and fierce. "I don't let people touch what's mine." The words sent a heat through me that had nothing to do with the pain. He cleaned the cut on my lip with gentle hands, taped my ribs, and made sure I took something for the pain. When it was done, he didn't move away. "You're staying here. End of discussion," he said. I should have argued, but I didn't. That night, lying in his guest room, the city lights spilling through the window, I could still feel the weight of his hands on me, steady, protective, unshakable. And I realized that whatever was happening between us, it was no longer just a race. This is the end of part 1. So don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what's coming next.